We've talked a lot about what is brand, why it's important. Let's talk about how to do it and how it relates to building an intentional online presence that gets you closer to these goals. It can feel like you're shutting yourself off from a lot of people. And we're in the profession of helping, and so we never want to be turning people away. But we can get creative with how we niche. So we can niche with who we're serving, right? So new parents, creatives, executives. But we can also niche in terms of how we serve them. What sort of modalities are you best at? So it might be EMDR, or somatic therapy, or DBT. Now, I do believe typically the more we niche, the better we're able to resonate. And there's always enough people, typically in a market, like new parents, where you're not going to run out of new parents who need therapy. If you do find that, you can always go more broad. But consider who you're serving right now and what it might look like to go 1 or 2 levels deeper in terms of creating a more differentiated or specific specialization. Here are some easy fixes that I do see a lot of therapists and clinicians potentially missing. Blurry or low resolution photos, especially if you only have one. Remember our principles earlier, that when someone looks up your name, and if they don't have any word of mouth connection to you, the first thing that they see is going to be their entire judgment of you. So if you have one blurry photo, we want people to feel real. We want them to feel trustworthy. And what does it say if you have just one blurry photo where you can't really see the person's face, you don't really get a sense of their affect or what it would be like to work with them? Another example is generic bios. And this is really hard, and we'll talk about how to write more clear and compelling copy. But remember, strong associations drives behavior. And so even if you have a perfectly fine bio, but there's nothing differentiating you, it is unlikely that people are going to take actions, especially the actions that we want in terms of your goals. But one very important thing for us to note is that people have very short attention spans. People will only spend 15 to 30 seconds on average on your site and bio. So if they don't clearly know exactly what we want them to do and what next step to take, they will often disengage and move further. Another example of a pretty easy fix is having no website, especially if you're dealing with audiences 50 years old and under. Because most of the time, even all of us, I believe in this room, will look up a website of a business or search someone's name before working with them. You probably looked up my name and looked at my website to form your judgment of, is this person going to be trustworthy? Am I going to get something valuable out of this lecture? And there was a confluence of variables. The way that I wrote my copy, having an image, and I would be maybe curious at the end to hear from your perspective, because I'm just guessing. If you have telehealth practice or you do a lot of Zoom therapy, consider having, what is your lighting and video setup? If you have a low resolution camera that's very blurry, or a slow internet connection that's dropping out, remember, we're talking about fixing constraints. Instead of having the perfect setup, think what are the biggest things that are holding people back from your client's perspective or whatever audience we're trying to reach. The easiest way to brand is to actually be the thing. Consider the words and the associations with the sort of judgments, reputation, messaging that we want. Break fuzzy words like being warm, being trustworthy, into a clear constellation of habits, behaviors, and observable proof, right? Because we can say we're warm, we can say we're expert, but if we show several conferences that we've been at, we show our warm, lovely, inviting office and our faces in high resolution, full light, the more proof we have, the stronger those connections. And I think that's a really important point, that if you only have one photo, people have to form their entire judgment on that single photo. But we can make intentional decisions to add a video of us talking, photos of our office. We can add links to our presentations. The more that we give people, the stronger those associations will be. First off, notice we have a sharper image. It's a bit higher resolution. The letters are literally thicker, so it's easier to see, and especially on mobile, that matters when you're having to squint to see really small text. Also notice, as the designer, I bring your eye to one clear element first. I say, this is the most important thing to see. And we branded as evidence-based therapy with a human touch. So notice we're already niching down a little bit without bucketing ourselves and closing ourselves off. We noticed that our primary audience was focused more on the alphabet therapies, So these are people that are maybe more outcome focused and looking for evidence-based treatment. Less is more. Notice there's not that much copy. We have another association, rooted in care, grounded in skill, further making these associations, these positive brand associations based on our audience. And we have a very short sentence that's easy to scan. But one principle in website design is that people do not read, they scan. If you're busy and you're looking at a business, you want to see, are they open? Do they have what you need? And you're going to be scrolling down and your eyes are going to be trying to find that information. It's just about that first initial judgment. We want to make it simple. So reducing friction, reducing confusion. If you do use words that maybe are more clinical, where other clinicians understand, but clients might not understand the jargon, they might take a pause and say, am I at a level ready enough to work with this person? They might feel potentially shamed where I don't know if I'm smart enough to interact. The other things to consider, which is our principles. Who is your audience that you're speaking to on Psychology Today? The more that we can niche down, someone's going to be looking for a therapist or a clinician for a particular thing 9 times out of 10. Therapy is a cost, and so many people do not just go to therapy for the sake of therapy. They're in pain, and they're motivated by solving that pain. And it can feel a little weird to have this almost transactional thinking of someone's coming for an outcome, and that's not really how, as therapists, we navigate things, but as users, that is how they're going to be interfacing with your profile. Every single word or sentence should be enhancing the goal that we want. So ask yourself, is this information important? If I removed it, are people missing something, or are they getting further from our goal? Imagine if every single thing is necessary and good, and there's no bad, then the thing is automatically good, right? So if I just removed every unnecessary and pause and bit of information from this presentation, it would by definition be better. We want to reduce friction. Anytime there's confusion or there's a point of resistance, if people have to stop and think or have to do extra actions, the less likely they are to take action. So I would say in general, if you're comfortable and if it's contextually appropriate, the more ways that people can get in touch, and by the way, the more ways that people can pay you, typically the better. We want to reduce all of the barriers to people getting in touch with us. So I do think adding email, adding an address matters. Selling is helping, and it is our career, right? It's what we're doing. And so I think you have a right to own it. And in fact, really an obligation to yourself and to your clients, if I could be so bold to say. I would say be compassionate with yourself. Change is hard, resistance is normal, and it requires a level of vulnerability that I think is uncomfortable. And so focus on small but meaningful strides forward instead of large leaps. You don't have to start an Instagram tomorrow, posting videos every day. You can think in terms of our constraints, what are 1 or 2 significant but manageable actions that I can take that move me a step forward? And I believe if you build that habit over 3, 4, and 5 years of taking meaningful steps, being conscious about what sort of associations you're projecting, incorporating feedback and being mindful, and also being easy on yourself, giving yourself a pass and having a little compassion, just like for your clients, but for yourself, you'll all do awesome.